3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Hey, it's GrokTALK. Welcome back, live from Concord, New Hampshire. Thank you to the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and, of course, the bloggers at GrokTALK.com. Remember to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Follow us, like us, love us. We are also on iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, and you can now go to patreon.com, patreon.com/GrokTALK, and make a regular monthly donation to the program to help support this awesome radio show.
Love us?
Love us!
I'd rather settle for respect.
You can
and
hate us
fear.
too, I don't care. You can hate us, you can be disinterested. Just listen and share in the glory of GrokTALK. We are waiting for Kevin Bloom to show up, but half of him is here. You're the lawyer.
The good half.
He didn't tell me who the lawyer was. He said, I'll call the lawyer. Maybe he did tell me. I don't even remember. But you can tell us why Kevin's not here, or you can tell us why Kevin was coming.
Kevin's not here. No.
You can't tell us why he wasn't here.
It's
but you
the
can tell us why
empty
he's here.
seat syndrome.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Kevin since that's the rule. Anyway,
He's
welcome,
not here to
welcome
defend
to the
himself
show.
and
He's
say
not
whatever
here.
I want.
That's exactly
Well, like the empty
right.
seat behind the Oval Office desk?
All right,
No.
so you guys are bringing
Valerie Jarrett
a
sits
lawsuit? Or,
Yep, so I'm representing Kevin in the Church of the Sword, and what happened was he was applying
Church
for
of the Sword.
Church of the Sword. And
so
so
religious freedom issue. Here you go.
Yep.
Well, I'd hate to see what that sacrament is like.
feel free, come one of our religious services, and you can sword fight.
I
It's
think
part
he's
of
here.
things we do. And so, yeah, what happened is the Church of the Sword filed for a tax abatement with the town of Westmoreland, and that was denied. So they denied it without giving a reason. I think there's an issue there. But so what happened is we filed in Superior Court to appeal that decision, and the town of Westmoreland filed a motion for summary judgment, which is a fancy way of saying dismiss this case. So we appealed that, and now it's up at the New Hampshire Supreme Court, and we just turned in our briefs last week or 2 weeks ago now, so waiting for town of Westmoreland's response, and ultimately this issue will be decided by New Hampshire Supreme Court.
Okay, so tell us the Church of the Sword.
Yes.
It's Westmoreland.
Yes.
Sounds like an interesting name. I'm not sure, you know.
Well, Kevin would know how they came up with the name, but
He would,
so
yeah. You're not here. You don't know why. Okay, Kevin.
Well, but you know something. It
we
does,
are mobile. He could be listening, going, I'm supposed to be there right now.
You know, I do understand though. Is it the role of government to define what religion is? And we've been seeing this now since Obamacare went. We've got the HHS mandate that says that that all organizations were supposed to supply contraceptives and abortifacients, and several cases have gone to the Supreme Court over government cannot tell us to violate our religious conscience, and several of those groups have won, although several have not. And I do see this creeping bad wind coming, where people are starting to say, we get to define what your religion is for you as long as it fits our purposes. And if your religious consent or conscience does not fit what we need as for the common good, we will override you. Just have to look at the Little Sisters of the Poor, where they're saying we do not want to sign the acknowledgement that we will not, that providing abortifacients. This is a group of Catholic nuns who for 175 years have done nothing but care for the poor. They're generally elderly. They don't want to apply, having their insurance agencies supplying abortifacients just because they sign a piece of paper to the government that says we will not do this, because the law then says that their insurers have to supply it, quote-unquote, free of charge. And I'm sorry, there is no free of charge. Somebody's going to pay. And they see this signing of the letter as being complicit in that mortal sin. Now, I'm not Catholic, but I'm not going to define for Catholics what their religious beliefs are. And I believe it's very well deeply held religious beliefs. And these people have given up everything to care for the poor and the dying. it isn't the role of government to define what religion is. And I guess that's what you're saying here. As much as it may sound outlandish, that's what's happening here.
Well, I think this is the exact problem, is that the ultimately the court found that Church of the Sword isn't religious without defining what religious is. So I think that's the issue, is that the U.S. Supreme Court never defined religion as well. We're specifically asking the New Hampshire Supreme Court to define religion, or at least adopt some factors.
Oh boy,
I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well,
it is.
That's the equivalent of asking for permission instead of waiting to be told no. I'm sorry.
Well, they were told no. That's how it started.
But asking to have religion defined is inviting it to be defined narrowly, and I think you have freedom of speech, association, and conscience, and they can't stop you.
Would it be my guess that the point is to determine, I just completely lost my train of thought, the state's role in recognizing what a religion is, which is kind of the same thing, but not exactly.
You do not want to get religion itself defined. The left are already trying to define religion as what goes on inside the walls of a church, and you have no right to your conscience outside.
Well, that's a poor definition. All right, I would like it defined differently. I think one of the things that the court should look at is...
I didn't say it was right. I said it's what we're up against.
Yeah, if it's a sincerely held belief, I think that's a good starting point.
And I believe in what you're saying. Over the years, I have seen all kinds of definitions. The church of this, or the church of that, the church of something else, and you keep going. Really? But there's a limiting factor to what I can say, even if I was still in government or elected or as judge or what have you. There is that limiting factor that says in the First Amendment, free expression thereof. And to me, that is the limiting factor against government, because that's what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is supposed to do, is to limit government. But if you've listened to Obama, he has always said the freedom to worship, which is a far cry. It goes back to Mike's stance of you get to worship within the four walls of your house of worship and in your home, but nowhere else now in the public square. And that is where they're trying to box it up. So I think you're doing the right thing by, having this suit. The local government, the county, the state, or the Fed should not be in the business of defining what religion is. And as much as I hate the phrase separation of church and state, because oftentimes it's used too often against religious people and people of faith, that should be a solid wall of separation where government cannot say what a valid religion is, just like what Mike was saying.
Yeah.
And, I hope you guys win this suit and then turn around and sue the pants off the local folks and forget about qualified immunity. Go after them individually for even daring. Because it's always every dollar is sacred at local governments. You cannot deny us a dollar, either an income or a dollar that we wish to spend. Trust me, having been on my budget committee for a couple of terms, that's how liberal, progressive, spend it, quality of lifers want to define the budget. It's all about what we can do for our pet projects, is what it comes down to.
I have a lot of Kevins in here. Boy, I'm trying to get a hold of it. He didn't send me any email. I'm going to text him, see if he's alive. He can't check it, but if he has hands-free, he can.
Precisely right that the state cannot discriminate and favor one religion over another, and that's exactly what they're doing when they're granting tax-exempt status to one religion and saying another group of people, we don't like your religion doesn't count.
And how orthodox does your religion have to be before your religious freedom is protected? Do you have to wear special clothes? Do you have to have special ceremonies? Do you have to have all kinds of special cloths and foods and rites and holidays for it to be a religion?
Well, not only that, but they can also, and more importantly, because we are becoming a country where the law is the morality. It's no longer an internal law. It's no longer an internal morality. When you listen to the progressives, if something is not expressly prohibited by law, you could take it both ways. It has to be expressly limited by law, otherwise you can't do it.
Here's the pattern that I've noticed from the left, is the only thing that they want to legalize is something that is outlawed in the Bible. Everything else they want to be illegal, regulated, mandated, or controlled by the government.
Well, going back to our original discussion in the last segment, where there has now been a Democrat legislator down in D.C. who is trying to remove husband and wife from all marriage-type law.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're reduced to spouses. And
which, by the way, if you look at corporate documentation, it's been that way for about 10 years. It always refers to your spouse.
Yeah, but it's still the basis of has been man and wife. And Steve's, going back to Steve's post of a couple of weeks ago, the whole idea is to basically dissolve the whole idea of marriage. And that's a really bad thing because, again, we were originally set up as a limited government, a wide civil society where individuals outside of government were able to interact and do their things voluntarily, and then then the person themselves. The family has been a big bulwark of that civil society, and now we're seeing the effort to dissolve the family as government is outcrowding the rest of civil society. Pretty soon that we are going to arrive at that Hobbesian Leviathan where there is only government and individuals. And how long can the individuals stand up against a Leviathan government? And if you strip away the idea of husband and wife, spouses and spouses, where you're only bound by contracts, then, as I followed your links, then the privacy of the family disappears because now it's just individuals. And then you think that the government's going to leave that what used to be called a family unit alone? Not happening.
There are more states talking about doing away with marriage licensing. Part of the reason for doing away with marriage licensing is, again, they're seeing what the divorce industry is doing to the family, what they're doing to families in this country.
Well, you got to read this piece I posted because it's about that.
Oh, it is scary.
It's the kicker is that there are these far left Marxist central planners who are
Feminists.
very open about what they want, who support the removal of marriage licenses in every state, and they explain why, and it's what Skip just said. They want to get rid of that because they argue that it gives the government the opportunity to go into the family, separate them into individuals, and regulate the crap out of them just like anybody else.
Anything else.
And when you go in and you look at that, and you read what they write and what they say and the influence that they wield, you may very well say, you know what? Maybe marriage licenses protect families, and that is essential to the foundation of our system of government.
I take somewhat exception to the concept that you need a marriage license per se. Originally the only thing you needed was the blessing of the church that you were suitable in their eyes to be married under their God's view.
Different world, though.
Assuming that the churches had some variations, but basically all Christian churches have the same kind of view, which is you have to show that you're a practicing Christian, and then they'll consider you worthy of being married under their purview. But whether you're married in a church or whether you're married in the town offices by the clerk or the judge, it's the act of being married and the marriage certificate. Marriage license implies the state has to give you permission to get married first. So I kind of think it's less government to not need a marriage license. On the other hand, the legal entity known as a married couple has protections under the law, such as not being able to incriminate each other or being forced to incriminate each other, and that's really important.
And I'm going to point out a situation very close to me where that would be wrong.
Okay.
My son has been with his girlfriend long enough to maybe be called a common law marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Not married. But this absolutely illustrates what Steve brings up, in that he has no legal right to the two little children that he loves dearly, and they love him as well. And the state can come in and just take him out of that environment for any reason that it wants. There is no legal protection, which if you remove the marriage license, that's the situation he is in. And he literally would die of a broken heart if government were to come in for whatever reason, under whatever circumstance, and break apart that unit. And trust me, they can do it because he has no legal protection.
I get that, and I'm no big friend of the social services for the kind of stuff that they pull. That's not the. But I think you're looking at the wrong instrument, Skip, which is, under common law and under statute in most jurisdictions in the Western world, there is such a thing as a common law marriage. Whereas if you've been together for a certain time, you have legal interests in each other's properties and in the
Should
children.
the state even have the power to take away your children?
No.
Well, that's the point that Steve and these papers were trying to say, that without that explicit marriage recognition by the state, they can do whatever they want. And given the slippery slope that we've been on everything else,
we're going to take a break in a second. But I think I understand what you're saying. You shouldn't need the piece of paper, but in the current battlefield, you do. So the question is, do we keep it till we can get rid of it?
And I'm only drawing the distinction between a license to get married and a marriage certificate, which is what you sign either in a legal office or in the church in the presence of witnesses, which is legally binding upon you and the state.
More on religious liberty in a few minutes. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Marriage blues.
No, it's the government versus marriage blues.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, microphones are up. The discussion is good. Half of our guest is missing. He is not answering his email. He is not answering his texts. I hope he's okay.
Maybe
Kevin?
he was imbibing a little too much at his new restaurant, Area 23.
Area 23. Yeah. It's in Concord.
It's in Concord.
Come visit and partake of his services, please.
Let's get back to the Church of the Sword and learn more about it then.
Well, he doesn't really know so much about the details. We need Kevin, and he's not here. So, can we Google it? Is it in there somewhere?
You can Google it. They have a website.
Okay, Mike, Church of the Sword, find it. Anyway.
I was making balloon animals at the Church of the Sword. Every balloon animal that I do, though, is always some variation on the little wiener dog.
Yeah.
So my giraffe is a wiener dog with a long neck, and my elephant is a wiener dog with a trunk, and so forth. Everything.
Is that what is sacrificed on the altar at the Church of the Sword? Just to have a little bit of levity. I don't see balloons and swords being a great pairing.
Unfortunately, we did inadvertently sacrifice a few. But I made a balloon sword.
As long as you don't have a puppet show.
They're
for money, though.
For money.
For money.
Does it have to be wooden puppets?
Doesn't have to be. Doesn't say. Does it? This is puppet show, right?
Their sword is like a stick with some padding wrapped with duct tape. So I always imagined a church with an altar. Maybe the new one does have it. Church with an altar and a great big golden sword somewhere as their idol or something. No, their ritual is sword fighting.
That's wonderful. So, no, what I liked was the statement right at the top of the web page. Please donate to our legal defense fund. Send lawyers, guns, and money.
I will accept guns in lieu of money.
Guns in lieu of money.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I got to... Unfortunately, part of our Producer Pro doesn't work all that well, so I'm just going to hold this up.
Yeah, it's not that easy to bring in external pictures, is it?
No, not right now. I haven't been able to figure out how to redo that. Maybe with the next upgrade, I need to remember the next time I bring our Ustream PC back home. is to do that.
Patreon.com, ladies and gentlemen, make a donation and we'll save up some money and update our Producer Pro so that
Yeah.
we won't have to hold the iPad in front
And
of the eye of
Patreon
Sauron.
is for starving artists like us.
Patreon is to support artists, any kind of artist, and that includes podcasts, vlogs, anything, art, actual art, music, cinema.
Including GrokTALk,
Including GrokTALk.
Grok TV, and the
Right.
masterful Photoshops that occasionally grace
Exactly,
our pages.
and you can donate to our art form and help support us because, I mean, we're not looking to make a living on this. We're just looking to keep it going, and things break down, and software needs to be updated, and phones and modems need to be paid
and
for.
I have a
and
new heroine for my Photoshop attention, which I'm going to have to work on.
internet
Yeah.
stuff. And
Since our governess is pro Planned Parenthood, and she likes having minions, the new accompaniment for the minions is a villainess named Scarlet Overkill. How delicious!
Just let me add on to what
I got to
Steve
get to work.
let me just add on to what Steve said. Not a dime goes into our pockets. We all at Granite Grok and GrokTALK have full-time jobs to support our families. Every dime that is donated goes to either keeping Granite Grok up on the air or going for this equipment, which some donations have come in for it. Lately, a couple of new headsets have come in. Donations for those, we greatly appreciate it. Instead of having to pass the headphones, we thankfully people put money in when we pass the hat. But yeah,
And we have
the
enough
most,
headphones now.
The most
we even have
a spare
extra one
Yeah,
that we're not using.
but the most esteemed wife has let me purchase most of this equipment over the years, and I'm very grateful for having her let me do that.
This board, that software, those headsets are
That
thanks.
board?
Well, no, I'm talking about stuff that we've purchased thanks to people giving us some money to help pay for things.
Yes.
People help pay for this. People help pay for the software. People help pay for these headsets, and
Yes.
we appreciate that because it's allowed us to grow the program.
Yes,
So,
and we do appreciate
which is
it.
free speech, which is in the same amendment as religious liberty.
Yeah, and I will say,
6
you know,
degrees
it
from
is
Kevin Bacon.
That's
Yeah.
right.
our name is Granite Grok. There is a Church of the Grok. We found this out with a couple of emails and a couple of nasty phone calls. They actually thought that by opening up Granite Grok, a political website, we were joining their church. You know, we got the word grok, which means to understand fully and deeply.
Do we
From
wear
a
white
book.
robes? I think not.
Yeah, from a book by Robert Heinlein called
collar.
Stranger in a Strange Land, and they actually formed a church after that book. Now, to most of us, probably sounds like a silly idea, but it's a perfect example of yet another church, Dan. They have their own religious beliefs. They thought we were violating their beliefs by using the word grok in a secular political sort of way, and they let us know in no uncertain terms. But again, it comes back to what is the proper role of government? Is it to define our conscience? I think that's what a lot of the people are doing, and you see the gay marriage. It is not about legal acceptance of gay marriage. I don't think they would be content with that, because it first went from civil unions. They weren't content with that. Then it had to be marriage. I think they are looking for positive and celebratory affirmation of that, and a lot of that is now being implemented by government, and that's violating the consciences of a lot of people. I will tell you that a good friend of mine out in Ohio, their church, which I wrote about this week, said we will no longer do weddings because they are afraid of being sued now that gay marriage is the law of the land, that they will be sued for sexual discrimination, even though their theology, and I agree with their theology, says it is anathema. It is a sin to bless something that is sinful. And that's the word, sinful, that the government is saying you aren't allowed to say that anymore. And I think we're going to see, you know, your suit on the Church of the Sword is a microcosm of the larger writ large, that I'm saying Orthodox Christianity is going to severely be attacked. And again, we're seeing the Hobbesian view of Leviathan government reducing any interstitial space between government and its force and the single individual, because that's what's happening. We are being divided into individuals. No more voluntary associations, be it marriage or, in this case, a church.
Is it any wonder the citizens are arming up because they feel the beast growing closer?
Well, I think that has to do, at least on the right, with a lot to do with how Donald Trump is being seen, where a lot of people are upset. They see traditional American life being destroyed, and they are scared. And I have to say, I am scared with us. We are not being led to a utopian.
Yeah,
Susan Olson posted something this morning, right before I left, that illegal immigrants commit 10 or 11 times as many violent crimes or as many homicides, and no one is talking about this.
Well,
Donald Trump talked about it,
and
and now he's being railed against, and now the establishment GOP is now attacking him and trying to distance themselves from Donald Trump.
Right, but let's be clear on a couple of things. I've been listening to some of my back copies of Limbaugh because I try and play catch up with the podcast. So, first of all, I think Trump won't be shut up, which is great. Secondly, on the Second Amendment, Trump's absolutely firm. On NBC a couple of weeks ago, they tried to box him in and said, well, what about gun control and what about gun violence? And he said, I'm not going to go there. It's a slippery slope. I'm absolutely for the Second Amendment. Any of this stuff is going to ultimately take away from your Second Amendment rights.
But that's not what he believed a while ago, where he was in favor of a complete ban on assault weapons. I mean, I understand the appeal that he has, but when you start researching some of what he has said in the past, you kind of got to go,
Yeah, I know.
But he is absolutely tapping into a vein on the right of people saying, this is not the America our founding fathers created. And they're looking for somebody to stand up brashly and brazenly swing that bat and protect what they believe. And I think the establishment GOP, as you pointed out, that they're cowards. They're not standing up, with the exception of perhaps Carly Fiorina and Ted Cruz, and in religious liberty, Bobby Jindal. They're not standing up. They just want to be under the radar, or say it in the smooth, soft, silky political.
They are liberal, and nobody likes them, and people don't like voting for them, and they lose every election.
Well, and that
every
is
single election.
We saw that here in November with Walt Havenstein and Scott Brown. When they went against their own base, they lost. And I'm seeing that, if somebody like a Jeb Bush gets in, or a Chris Christie, or not Steve King, but what's the other King from New York?
Peter King, George Pataki,
George, and a couple of others.
Jim Gilmore, who I'd like to come back to.
Yeah, I still have to put up the video from CNHT.
You may not have time for that.
But we're
not right now.
If we're not going to pick a candidate that's going to swing for the fences for us, why should I give them my expensive vote?
All right, coming up.
Absolutely.
Mike Ferris, constitutional appellate litigator. And he's the Chancellor of Patrick Henry College, chairman of the founder of Homeschool Legal Defense Association. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court ruling on same-sex marriage. Skip's going to give him a buzz during the break. Dan, thanks for coming in. Kevin, wherever you are, I hope you're okay. And if you show up at 10, too bad. See ya.
Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it.
Line one.
That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire
line one.
citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jean Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jean Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jean Shaheen she's made healthcare worse. Few things are as important as finding the right doctor. And under Obamacare, that's harder than ever. Over a third of our hospitals no longer available. Our doctors no longer covered. Fewer choices, longer drives. No state has been harder hit than us. And even after watching it impact New Hampshire, Congresswoman Ann Custer still supports it. Call Ann Custer. Tell her Obamacare isn't working for New Hampshire.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTV.